Is it so? The enrollment is down.
Good question.
A lot of students don't have to work anymore because of student loans though.
Yep. Yeah, that's the issue. They've got the Pell Grants. The
Yeah.
Pell Grants pay enough around here. They don't need to work.
Oh.
And a lot of other people don't need work either because of the government.
That is so.
The government's
true.
making its own problems.
Yeah, I was in a little story, then we'll get on with the agenda, our workshop, but when I worked for Boeing up in Illinois and I had all of HR, I was at a meeting. This is back, it's been 12 years ago now. But it was to honor the Kennedy administration. So we're over at the Kennedy Center and I happened to be at a table talking to House staff people who provided advice, economic advice to congressional members. And I said, you know, one of the things that changed is you guys are funding too much for unemployment. So no, Rick, you don't understand. This is how it works. You know, if you have unemployment, you have to go in and get a verification you've been looking for work. And then, you know, we pay for all that. I said, hold it, I'm the Boeing guy. We got 175,000 employees. We pay a heck of a lot of unemployment. Let me tell you how it really works. I said, you, the feds, require the states to monitor all that. We, the companies, pay for it. So let me tell you what the states do. They don't require anyone to verify they're getting a job. It's all done with the phone. You call in, hi, my name's Rick. I'm looking for a job, couldn't find anything, send my unemployment. And that's how it works.
And then also like some of the people looking for employment, I've seen them come in and be like, they'll dress to not get the job.
Oh, yeah.
And then they won't bring a pen and be like, you got a pen?
Yeah,
Like they'll say things in a way that they know they're not
Then I
gonna
get a job. Yeah. And so I said,
incredible.
you got the wrong incentives in place. Oh, well, that's the system we have. I said, hey,
I wish there was like a time limit on
Yes.
all this free stuff.
Isn't there a time limit?
No, not really.
I thought in Texas it was like 6 months.
well,
It is.
but that's the Texas, how they work it, but the federal government funds or works it and sets the requirements. It goes on and on and on.
Mm.
So,
It's a great thing for like people who really need it. Just to, like if
Yes.
they're really knocked down, and it only takes 6 months to a year, right, to
Yep.
get back up if you're trying.
comments. It should be.
They're not 5 to 7.
Yes. Yeah, no, it's a tough situation. And then getting people past drug tests. Don't pass drug test. A lot of cases you can't hire them.
They don't, and to get Medicaid or whatever, you don't have to take a drug test.
Right.
Everyone can get it.
Yep.
And they can walk in with fake nails and a brand new car and get it.
You got it.
It's
Yeah.
In Medicare
crazy.
or Medicaid?
The one that like anyone
Medicaid.
should, Medicaid.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I
it's-
don't have to pass a drug test to get my Medicare.
right.
And
And
I'm a
that's-
medicine.
SNAP will pay for anything.
Right.
You can get whatever you want.
And they also give you cash too, like a
Oh, yeah.
cash card.
Yeah.
So you get free food. And if you get a job, it might not pay more than the free money.
Right.
So, and if you work too many hours, they'll take away your
They'll take
benefits.
it away. So they're on the negative incentives, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's so bad.
Anyway, sorry, Chris.
Yeah.
Back to you.
And so some government money that we can throw out the door strategically for the benefit of the citizens of Alpine. So I'm going to go ahead and call this workshop to order. We don't have a quorum, but it's a workshop meeting, so that's not required. As I mentioned, Susan Gonzalez from Place 7 has informed me of her resignation. We need to formalize it. I need to get back with her to get a letter that Geo can file.
Yeah.
Karen Selewski informed me this evening that she can't make it. Let's see. And then Jessica Lundby hopefully will be here, but late. John Green, I texted, but I did all this way later than would have been effective to remind people.
John's in town, I think, because
Is he?
I think so, because I know Carlos in town.
Yeah, I hadn't heard from him super recently, but he would be zooming in if he was going to be here. So that's the status of our order of our quorum or lack thereof. There's no non-members of the board, so I'm presuming there are no comments from the public. And then we will move on to the minutes. of the last two meetings. July, November was canceled due to lack of quorum. And then we have the minutes from July, if you guys want to look at that.
Certainly,
Would you like to make a motion?
yes, I move we accept.
Can you at a workshop?
Gio says yes. That's why
Okay.
I asked him about having this action
Good.
and he said for this purpose, yes, we can.
Super.
So we have a motion and have him,
Yes.
do you have a second of his Larry?
Yes.
So I'm presuming we have some votes, but let's all in favor of approval of these minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. And sign these for Gio. And so then Rick and I had met a little while ago about this agenda with the idea, because there's been a few different discussions about what this committee could bring in addition to the single recommendation that has happened through annually. And so one of the things we thought we would do is discuss kind of in some overview items, get your thoughts on those things, and then think about are there any strategic inputs or plans going forward we might consider. And so first off, the available sources of economic and visitor data reports. That's something there are a few different groups looking to work this question of economic data. There's a Alpine Downtown Association has a economic development group. I know that Councilmember Darren Nance is also had talked about within that context, looking at some kind of economic development thing through the city.
Yeah, so if I can pipe in. a little
Please,
bit.
all through, yes, we're relying on you to do so.
So in my view, there are really three groups trying to look at what goes on from an economic standpoint. Assuming that if we have economic data, we can then help businesses understand where tourists are coming from and where they're spending their money. One is the county. Greg Hennington, the judge, got some excess capital, money came in, and in association with the Alpine Business Alliance or Downtown Alliance, whatever you want to call it, commissioned a group to go gather some economic data, and it's geofence data. Okay? Lisa Fielder with the Business Alliance is going to a conference later this month, along with Darren Nance, who's interested in economic development with City Council, to go look at some other economic development data. The third is the City of Alpine, and Megan has funded, and Chris, you know more about this than I do, but I had a discussion with Megan Tuesday night after City Council meeting about the economic data that the city is funding. And one of my puts to Megan was yesterday, how about we get all three groups together and get alignment about that economic data? And let's talk a little bit about the sorts of data that are available. Through use of cell phone data, you can get the geofenced information about where people are coming from, coming into this region, how long they stay. You can also get data about what they spend in terms of the amount of money they spend. And in my view, that's really valuable information for us about where does the city want to advertise, and or where would businesses look to be able to attract and bring people in. I think it's a huge opportunity, but I think we're in our infancy in that area about what that data is available. So my put to Megan was last night, Megan, sometime in the month of January, why don't we get the players together, sit around the table and look and say, here's the sort of data that's available. And in my view, the Hotel Occupancy Tax Committee could then have that data as well to look and say, where should we make investments on hotel occupancy tax funds about where we're gonna employ those dollars to be able to meet the city of Alpine needs. From a city standpoint, my primary motivation is how do we bring in more people in to spend the nights here? And the second is, how do we get more sales tax data? That's good for the city. I'm gonna switch hats now. If I put my Alpine Business Alliance hat on, for which I'm the treasurer of the organization, businesses want to use that data to be able to attract people in, to be able to sell their goods and services. In addition to know, hey, if I'm running a business, is that something that people are interested in coming into Alpine? A third thing, I'm gonna put a third hat back on, my city hat back on. I said, Megan, wouldn't it be nice if we're able to deploy some of that money to provide a service to visitors who want to come in to this region? So let's say I live in Dallas and I know I want to come to the Big Bend region. I've got 5 days. Who can put an itinerary together for me for those 5 days? And I know I'll look and say, gee, I'd like to go to a Big Bend National Park. I got 2 days. I'd like to come to Alpine because there's something going on the week that I'm gonna be here at the Granada or some other activity going on. Oh, I like to go up to the, and I want to go to the Museum of the Big Bend. I want to go to Fort Davis and see what's up there because of the fort. Oh, gee, I'd like to go to McDonald Observatory. Can someone help lay out the itinerary for me about how I would spend my 5 days? And they also know what's open, restaurants, events, activities. And in my view, if we could figure out how to work that, and I said, hey, Megan, that's something the city could go do. Wouldn't that be a nice way to work it and help bring more people into the area? We could probably spend hotel occupancy tax funds to be able to fund that because it's going to bring in more revenue. But that's a service that's sort of needed. And the brainchild was not mine, it was my wife's. She sat out one day at the corner of 5th and Holland and watched people get off the train and then talk to people and says, hey, I'm in Alpine because I saw an ad in Scotland about coming here. I took the train down. What do I go do? I don't have an itinerary or anything. And I'm thinking, wow, typically that's what most people want to run into and be a nice service provider. So having that data in my mind would be of really great value to go help people.
Yeah, so what I've been working with Megan and the sources that we through Visit Alpine we partner with Marfa and split the cost that
Yep.
way. And so we have a visitor dashboard, which as Rick mentioned, it's got mobile device data combined with credit card data. And so it is very good for comparing markets and saying what's the behavior from the Dallas, and most of the time they're in DMA level, which is the large marketing. There's the Nielsen Corporation split up the country into these large things with often anchored by a big metro. So we are actually in the Midland Odessa DMA. So it's pretty rough. It's a very large grouping, but we can say, this many more of the devices observed and the credit cards that were matched to those devices. This is how many of them were from these places. These are the zip codes that spent more, things like that. We do have that information. We then added what's called AirDNA, which is it basically automatically collects Airbnb and VRBO data. And so that we got in the absence of hotel data kind of as a proxy for the overall, even though, as you and I were just discussing, there are differences. It is a different market, short-term rental versus a hotel, but it gives us something because we don't have hard data otherwise. And so that part's very new. And so I've been working, my boss is Megan, and so she's the consumer you know, as the way we've been doing it, it's like I use that data to make advertising decisions for the general fund that the city does. I think it's a tumbleweed. And
We
then
should, gather them all up and let them go as tourists come in, so they really put West
right,
Texas
there you go.
arrive.
It's something I was wondering, I hate to interrupt, but
Uh,
what does Marfa do to get people so interested in Marfa? But a huge number of our guests come stay here because it's cheaper, but they're going to Marfa. And at least half of them say, boy, Marfa is disappointing.
but
But they get them there, somehow.
well, it's less that Marfa gets them there than the confluence of things that Marfa is exciting to coastal folks and coastal media.
What are those things?
Well, those
I don't see
it's
anything exciting about Marfa.
it's well, it's not exciting to you, and yeah, exactly. It's a buzz, is what it is, and it's what you might call the influencer market. You know, it's celebrities have been drawn there, and that's because of the arts. You know, those the Chinati Foundation,
Yeah.
Ballroom Marfa, those art installations that drew, and then honestly, it's the design. What's the right word? The sensibility, the visual sensibility of the town. How many of those old adobes or architects have come in and refinished? So for the high-end visitor, they can go into spaces that are very refined.
But
I
these
think
people
that-
aren't high-end visitors. They're coming here because it's cheaper to stay here.
Well, exactly,
But they're somehow they're hearing about how great Marfa is. That's what I'm
because
saying is, why
it's
can't we
this.
let them know how great Alpine is? We're better.
May I interject?
John!
You're right.
Sorry, I slipped in so late, everybody. They stay in Alpine, not because it's cheaper, because we have all the hotel rooms. All the hotel rooms in Marfa are constantly booked up. And so you will find that when a big something comes to the Big Bend, folks are staying in Alpine.
John, how many hotels does Marfa have?
I'm sorry?
How many hotel rooms does Marfa have?
I'm going to say
You
under
know,
three-
I don't know off the top of my head, but I do know that the trouble has always been that they're booked.
Okay,
I think they have between 200 and 300.
okay, and we have 600
Yeah,
plus?
yeah.
Yep,
And I'm talking about my Airbnbs though.
yep.
And I've looked and the ones in Marfa are much more expensive
Oh,
than
yeah.
the
Yeah,
ones here.
well, we have different audiences, but the audience that Marfa has, and I would argue that Marfa as an agent Marfa has not sold themselves this way. Marfa has kind of organically appealed to a really high profile visitor that then a certain other group of influencer types are very excited about. So it's just a really buzzy crowd that Marfa appeals to, and that
But my
built
question
hype.
is, how do we get that excitement? to
and
come
what
back?
I'm suggesting is that we don't, because Marfa did. Marfa didn't actively do it. It happened. And what you
I don't agree
notice,
with that.
well, I've known I would argue that the arts nonprofits did more than the tourism promotion side. I've worked with these guys for a long time, and they're not doing anything particularly different than what Alpine's doing. Marfa is appealing to a certain hipster crowd, a celebrity group, a jet setting crowd that has built that buzz. But that buzz is what drives disappointment, because there's this aura of Marfa as the place to be that doesn't actually deliver an experience.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And I understand all that garbage. But it's not the jet setters that are staying in my Airbnbs. And
Yeah,
why can't we build that aura for Alpine?
Well, what
My-
happened in Alpine from my observations over the last 5 to 7 years on the hotel industry is that Alpine began lowering its rates, and all these Airbnb hosts tried to be the lowest to get the most bookings, and it drove down the price. And so now it's too hard. It's hard to bring it back up, because when you bring it back up, you still have this huge pool of people that are still renting at 97 or 9.
I'm not even talking about bringing the prices back up. I'm just talking about getting more people interested in Alpine the way they're interested in Marfa. Which is, in my opinion, Alpine's a much more interesting place.
Yeah, they do, yeah.
We don't have,
Not yet.
ARPA has a niche. I mean, if it's the art, if it's the influencer, they have a niche. The people are going there. Alpine doesn't have a niche.
Yeah, the
We need
word is
one.
out.
We need one.
The
That's
word
the
is
point.
out.
I think that Alpine's gonna be I strongly hesitate to try and buzz but my philosophy from the start has been to describe positively but accurately the things there are to do in Alpine. What Alpine has, we have small town charm. We have a naturally beautiful environment, the valley that we're in. We also have central access to the region. So we have it's a logical place to base your trip. So you can have a longer trip with multiple day trips, things like that. These are they're kind of common sense things, but that's the picture that we paint of that Alpine has a cultural scene. We have a music scene and art scene. It's not that it's obviously a very different one from Marfa. And honestly, it's kind of a lower key place. But if we successfully buzzed Alpine, I feel that we might have short-term spikes, but we would be breeding disappointment once again if we hype Alpine.
But what Alpine is, not what you want somebody to think it is. That's what Marfa does. They want people to think it's all this wonderful art and all this stuff. And it's not. When you get there, you got to search just to find anything.
You know what I think separates Alpine from the other towns around is that so many people that are local live here. So one of the things that you could highlight about Alpine is that it's where the locals live. If you want to stay like a local, if you want to be where all the amenities are, and then that could be a marketing aspect.
Sure.
It's like you can live the small town life, not just walk through it like Disneyland, where there's no real substance, just all marketing and bright lights.
Good point.
That's what Alpine has to offer. Baseball games, rodeo, like real life things. Not Disney World, like Mark. But you have to tell the people they want that. You have to be like, do you want to visit a real small town and like explore it like a local? Like pretend to live there.
I've told numerous guests who told me they were coming here to go to Marfa. I'll message them back and say, well, when you find out how disappointing Marfa is, come on back to Alpine because there are a lot of fun things to do in Alpine.
I tell them it takes about 3 hours to explore Marfa. I tell them where to go. Send them on a loop and say, but you should stay in Alpine because it's the best base location. If this is your first time to the Big Bend, stay in Alpine because it's the hub. You can go to all the places from there and you'll have everything you need and you won't be paying exorbitant prices to do it.
That's what I always advertise because we're right in the center of the Big Bend area.
That's exactly what Rick mentioned earlier.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And Chris, when I talked to Rick about it, I love the idea and we played with some of my, thoughts. Remember when we sat down with Mr. Zimmer and we had that conversation, and I think it was, we were gonna try to sell adventures. I think that was the term we were looking at. And when you went to the website, you could pick an adventure and it would kind of give you an itinerary. Did I dream that?
That sounds familiar. It's been a while.
It has been a while. That was the very first go round. Both of you, Jess basically said, is Alpine's the hub of our region. It's the largest city within basically almost 4 counties.
Yeah.
We have all of the amenities that we don't advertise as far as like, Wi-Fi, easily accessible in a lot of our public settings. And you go to the park and get on your I think what you guys are both saying, that's the niche. If you're gonna sell Alpine, you're gonna sell it as we're the heart, if you want to go back to the old terminology. But you sell the adventure that comes with it. Because you can do more here and venture out than you can if you're in the other places because you're not center. But the city had talked about that. I wanna say it was probably like 15, maybe 14. But we sell the adventure. We stay here in one of our STRs or our hotels, and we kind of have someone who plans out your itinerary, and you get to go to Fort Davis and Martha and, you know, even Presidio or Big National Park. You tie it all back together, but the one thing you can't sell Alpine is we're not a shopping center. You don't wanna entice them to come shop here, because then you get the disappointment, like you said, they go to Martha and they think they're gonna have this glamorous adventure, and then they realize, oh, it's not. So you do have to, like, and you said it, you have to sell it for what it is.
Yeah, it's still kind of untouched by tourism. I mean, even though it is like the most reliable industry here right now, it hasn't been affected in the way that Marfa or Terlingua has, where all the locals have been pushed out, and now it's just like SDRs and shop. And it's still authentic.
And that's how, you know,
that's cool.
you sell your small town adventure. Your small town adventure starts here. And then you go down to Trinidad for the day and enjoy it, and, you know,
Make the loop.
I call it the triangle. You do the triangle, the loop.
Yeah.
But I think the key is we anticipate tourists to have a plan. And
Never.
from what I've noticed on a lot of our tourists is they're coming here for one thing, and when they're here, they're like, oh, I could have come and done that, or I could have done that, or I didn't even know about that. So if we advertise and go after a package, or, you know, come here for 5 days, and in 5 days you can see, you know, all of West Texas, or however you want to put it.
Even Balmaray. Great attraction.
Balmaray's
And there aren't many places to stay in Balmaray.
45-minute drive if you don't go to Speed.
Yeah, well, we can stop along Fort Davis along the way, there are all the places to see. We got more hotel rooms than anyone else.
And not only that, but a lot of people are disappointed because when they get here, Balmaray State Park, you have to have tickets now. You can't just show up.
Yeah.
And so they get there and they can't get in and they're upset. But did you know that there's a lake in Balmaray as well?
Sometimes.
It's a little bit right now. There's alternatives if you can't get something, and I don't think people really know that. And despite how much we think people are on their phones looking for it, I mean, there's some days I think that when we take a vacation, we just want to step away and have it planned. We don't want to think about what's the next step. I know I enjoy a vacation right now.
Well, it'd be cool if they had the tools to pick. Like if they had an
Build
app.
your own adventure.
Yeah, if they had an app and they're like, here are all the things, or as soon as they get on the app and they pay $5.99 for it, yeah, that's a lot of money. And then you have a questionnaire for them. What does your group like to do? Hiking, horseback riding, river rafting, bicycling, shopping, walk around, laze around, go on a driving tour. You know, you like profile them, and then you give them options of what to pick from, like to do their first trip out here, and you have like a first trip recommendations based off of their likes. And then you have a second trip, and it's saved in the app. You have to give them an incentive to not delete the app because you want them to keep paying for it, because you're going to need a lot of money to have an exhaustive calendar of events, of everything going on all the time, updated hours. It's a huge undertaking. I already talked to an app developer about doing that for the region, because my cousin is an app developer. He was like telling me all these things that I need and how much it will cost, but it's really, the upfront cost is not as big as the continual cost.
So we start small.
Yeah.
Well, we offer the service, and maybe it's not even a paid service, but we entice people so that the word gets out. People start coming here and they can go to one location, be like, hey, I'm here for the next 4 days. What can I do? What can you put together?
Yeah.
And then we build it up. I mean, yes, everyone's, loves the app, but when you go down south, your cell service isn't gonna be.
It's pretty good now.
Not even in the park.
Yeah, and on apps, like you can download your itinerary, and it can also tell you like where you'll get cell phone service. You can send them on their entire trip. Be like, go to Cafe Benga and load your next journey, or go to Cafe Benga and initiate a treasure hunt. Like, go find a mystery spot you don't know what it's gonna be until you get to that location. So you get to Benga and then it sends you, okay, you're going here. They're like, well, okay, let's go there. Cause they don't know the difference
And then
between
that's the end goal,
Let's
is to
find-
have an app like that. I mean, I think we're gonna start somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, all four of you basically said,
a lot of people have this in their mind right now, so somebody is going to do it. You know, the owner of Granada, he's also like putting dollars towards that right now. And he wants to, you know, maximize it and make it a good business. That's a great business idea.
So getting the data. have it
Yes,
all
yeah.
available.
And
That's
where we're
great.
at right now, we just added the air DNA, and so I've been working with Megan and sent my first sheet of charts because there's got several different uses, and I think one of the primary values of getting those different stakeholders at the table is to see, well, how can we leverage this data in as many different useful ways as possible? Because the two that we've been looking at so far is one, targeting for ads. So we're doing that already. I'm using that to decide how our general promotions budget is spent to try and get the word out about Alpine in the way you were asking. But then another big one was to assess trends over time. You know, what is a tourism economy like? You know, how did we do last quarter versus the quarter before versus that same quarter of previous year, things like that. And so with the addition of the occupancy data and air DNA, that's what we started working on, kind of making an index where we can, you know, weight some of those things based on how accurate the samples are and things like that, to say, here's kind of a score, a trend for what we see, the ups and downs of visitation money.
So when will that be available? That this committee can start looking at it, understanding it.
I made the constituent parts charts to build that index in my most recent report to Megan. So I have that, that's shareable. I haven't yet figured out the weighting and make the one master chart that is all the feed into. But I have the initial pieces that can be shared anytime.
Okay. So if we think about this committee,
Mhm.
be ready to come back and share. With us.
Well, with our next quarterly meeting, there's no reason we couldn't
Okay.
look at some,
So that'd be great.
mhm.
February. And in my view, then that would be a nice time to also talk about using that data to feed an app, if we're thinking about that in the servicing. And maybe we're having kind of this strategic discussion about there's data people are coming from. Here's what they're doing, and therefore here's what those people are interested in. Then if we had our inventory venture, you spend a day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, here are the sorts of scenarios that this data tells us people are off doing. That would probably be really beneficial. Because that gets back to the step off point. If, you know, does Alpine offer, we got more hotel rooms. So I'm hoping is this can say have resources, financial resources. Thunder.
So you mean that the city would be applying for its own hotel tax grant?
We have, the city has money.
Oh,
You all
on the
are
side.
about, what's the best way to allocate those dollars?
Yeah, you'd be making recommendations to council
The council.
for consideration.
Yeah. And in my view, I'm just a dumb business guy. Megan, we have what, $1 million in reserve?
a little less.
You know, a little less than $1 million. We ought to look, and this committee ought to look and say, here's where we ought to make those investments to build sport, bringing more people in, as it goes back to more hot money and more sales tax. To me,
So-
that's what this committee is all about, making those strategic decisions.
You know, one of the things that like comes up sometimes is that like, I guess my question is, can an app that the city of Alpine makes encourage people to go outside of Alpine or have calendars for events or locations in other cities? You know, is that something that the city of Alpine should or could or has the capacity to do? Or is that like a private person who's not necessarily attached to one city or another or one district? I don't know.
Well, we can spend
That's
hot money on, is it 9 different categories, Megan?
8.
8, there's 8 categories. In my view, if it fits in one of those 8, the answer ought to be yes.
Yeah, it does have to benefit, Alpine's hotel industry.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it can't simultaneously benefit the surrounding
Right.
communities as well.
Yeah, because
That's where you build partnerships.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
wouldn't
for sure.
be, we would do it for them, they would buy into it,
yeah,
because they have tourism money just.
oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good because a good app would not be biased. That's
Right.
good.
And if we were to go with a private corporation or private individual who would do it all, and we were to be providing them money, it would have to be a public-private partnership, and it would be a very detailed
Right.
agreement.
But as someone with the idea to create an app that wanted to get hot funds from the committee, it would have to support Alpine only, right?
Currently, it's,
Yes, yes.
and it would really be a public-private partnership.
Oh,
with
even then.
utilizing- So it would be a lot more than us just cutting edge.
Yeah.
They couldn't come in and apply and say, I want hot funds to create this app. It would be us coming up with a contract and a formal process and policy to put in place for that type of agreement,
Yeah,
and then utilize hot funds to assist with.
yeah,
it
I
would be a
foresee
totally
something
different
happening
application.
quick. It's like a fancy travel guide or a travel agency, because those kind of died back and now we need them again. But we need them on a more technological level.
Yeah.
On the phone. Phone can't handle the amount of inquiries.
But we also have to remember Alpine is, and even our turn in it is very unique when things are available.
Right.
So no matter how much people use Google and they say, oh, well, it's open, and you get there and it's not.
Oh, I know. That's what I mean by exhausted. Like
Yeah.
So
to
you're
have
gonna
a
have to have a local interface or a local person or an actual physical person.
Yeah.
Who actually is.
yeah, you'll have to have like a few secretaries or people that can have like community with the business owners so that business owner can just have them on text like, hey, we're closing. Or can you update this for us? Or,
And we technically do that.
all right.
Yeah.
But not to contact every business owner or every event calendar in the region.
No, we would start,
Just an
like, they
Alpine.
would start Alpine. And then, because we wanna, if we wanted to make it a huge regional effort,
Yeah.
you wanna show the success.
Right.
And you wanna have something for them to visually see and say, hey, this is working for us. Why don't you buy into it? And then we could add a section for Mark or a section for, because you'll have people who will back out. Fort Davis or Jeff Davis County has tried a partnership with us a couple times and they tend to change their mind. Martha and Alpine have been pretty steadily
Mhm.
working together.
Yeah, Fort Davis just has fewer dollars, and so depending, and it's the
Or they
chamber
can't
board,
pay.
the chamber board making the decisions, and so then there's turnover on the board, so their priorities will shift year to year. So sometimes they'll be funding for something and then there won't, and so then it's just Alpine and Martha.
But it doesn't mean that 4th of July, we're not including Fort Davis.
For sure.
4th of July,
Right.
even if they're not buying in, we're still gonna, I mean, you're buying an adventure, the experience.
Well, and ideally, since the experience that we're offering is not just an experience in Alpine. Yes, we want primarily their hotel experience to be in Alpine, but once again, not 100%. So if it, like, say it's a more, we don't have the technology picture yet, but it's more of a hands-on thing, that person should be empowered to, while promoting Alpine as the place on a 5-day trip, it may make the most sense for, to give them the best experience that, one of those nights or whatever is going to be down South County, because you want to get up early and you want to South Rim. Well, you need to spend the night, there and get an early start, and then you come back or whatever.
Yeah, everyone benefits.
yeah,
So like I said, we start off small, just focus on Alpine, and then we add more and more.
Yeah.
Then we start moving people, and then there could be other businesses that pop up, and you get a tour group that comes in and, you know, they have a bus and they start busing the people.
Right.
I mean,
Like the REI course, that big age shift.
or I mean, even if you look at the duck bus in Austin, where you could be in the water and on land, and you kind of get.
There's
to
no
those-
water here.
Down south. And there's international, I mean, you've got the challenge, there may be people who wanna go to Boquias and cross the border and, you know, even though they can do all the research, maybe we provide them that guidance, with, no, this isn't a good week to do that.
Yeah. That's so cool.
so,
I think one of the things that you always talk about when you talk about funding someone through the hot committee is about like, it's kind of to help them get on their feet. And so I would think that if the city wanted to do that, they should do it for a fee. Like an app that pays for itself and pays for its administrative fees. So it doesn't have to keep taking from hotel. Because it's that type of idea is so primed to make millions of dollars on its own. It would be a waste to not do that.
Well,
In my
because it would
opinion.
be initiated with hot funds, it would still stay with hot. And that's okay, that just means we have more money to invest in events and bring in bigger singers or bigger bands and, you know, make what we have going on, you know, bigger.
But it's still generating money, that's good, right? I think like that, when we look at some of these old festivals and stuff, I'm like, gosh, why don't they have that, you know, kind of lined out by now? It's been a long time. So I would like to see like the city be able to initiate that. I think would be so cool. Because you guys have enough money to do it. Because it will take a lot of money to do. But there's a lot of money to be made in that enterprise too.
So that's where Rick and I know Chris, it's just the strategy and investment.
Right.
And so the city's always invested in events. Of course, by law, we're required to also do the advertising. So even if our budget is 700,000, right off the bat, 351,000 is going to be advertising. So we work around that, but now as we develop and we look at everything going on around us, it's okay, how do we invest outside the events to bring the people in to help the event?
yeah, just having the, because for a long time, it was, whatever the chamber would do in terms of promotions, but primarily funding those events was what happened every year until I started working.
I was gonna say, till
Because of
2014.
Yeah. And so that general promotions budget even is kind of a new thing, you know, well, in terms of 13-year-old thing, but that's sort of new.
The 10 years hot funds have been completely restructured.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those, we're at that point where we want to restructure again. Cause you're right, we want to get the most of what money we do have available, but we want your businesses to also succeed, and they're not gonna succeed if we don't continue the tourism. The tourism is changing, because we wanna know who we're marketing to, and we're not bringing in the same people Marfa brings in. We're trying to figure out, okay, what do we want Alpine to bring in, and how that can kind of trickle down to all the businesses. Because it's not just your hotels and FTRs that benefit either. I mean, our local businesses, they benefit off of people coming to the restaurants and what shopping we do have available, the art galleries.
I think we ought to stress what we were talking about earlier, that this is the hub of the Big Bend area.
And that's what we
You know,
need to.
we're not
focus
gonna,
on.
we're not gonna try to compete with Marfa, we're not gonna try to compete with these other places, Big Bend.
It's not really. a
This is where you ought to
Yeah,
stay, because you can
exactly.
go to all these places from here in a short period of time.
Start your adventure here and we'll guide you with every direction. you go. I mean, some people like to go to Sanderson.
All the places here are so different. That's like a great thing because you have so much to offer if you're an agent trying to help people go on their trek.
And the big push in public service right now are leadership manager conferences. Where, you know, cities take their teams and go to a city and stay at a hotel and have some team development. I mean, we would be the perfect spot for that too. You don't have the bustle of all of this people wanting to go do all the stuff in a big town. They could focus on the team building.
Yeah, we don't have infrastructure for a lot for big conferences and conventions, but we
Like,
were
for-
perfect for retreats, for like workshop retreats. Yeah.
If I may,
Yes, John?
you know, when you say that we don't have facilities for big conferences, I agree. But my gosh, we have wonderful facilities for small conferences
Mhm.
and for small get together. Just look at the university with all of their facilities. And those, if you get a convention of 300 or 400 people, that's a lot. That's a big deal.
No question.
Whether it's the cactus convention of the year or a small film in my case.
There's so many local government organizations that have regional meetings and, I fight for Alpine to host, but, there's some things that come up as like, well, we don't have a Walmart, we don't have some of the things. So it's how do we sell Alpine? And to me, it's like, we're the ideal team building place. You don't have the outside distraction. You go on the hikes, you enjoy the local restaurants, actually unwind, decompress, take a step back. You're not spending 20 minutes in traffic to get across the highway.
Yeah, I was just thinking that on the way here, driving from Terlingua, it's so calm. Makes me want to polish silverware or something.
But it's peaceful. You kind of clear your mind. You think it's not the.
But in the city, you're right. It's like high energy, like what are we doing next? What are we doing next? Instead of focusing on the here and now. That could be a good
Here
like
and now.
focus on the here and now. Live in the moment, your story is unfolding right before your eyes. There's so many things that people are coming out here for and they can't like put their finger on it. That's y'all's job. It's like telling them where to put their finger. Cause they don't know. They
One,
wanna know.
with the team building idea, one thing, like in order to entice someone, you have to kind of paint that picture of say, this is what you could be doing. So one of the things I wonder is like, so let's say somebody wants to do something like that. Are there resources we could point them to help facilitate that? Because that's where we have a page of, on the website for meetings and team retreats.
That's what needs to be developed because the city of Odessa brought their executive team out here. And the only reason why I know that is because they contacted me wanting to know where to go.
Mhm.
What would be the best hotel, restaurant? Because there was nothing without like a central point for them to be. So they brought their executive team out here and had their team.
And did they bring their own facilitator? They probably did.
I don't know how they managed their retreats. I didn't ask. I just gave them kind of like, these are your top hotels. These are some of the bigger restaurants. Because obviously Odessa has a bigger executive team. I think we have 7 people on ours. So, but they enjoyed it. And to be honest, I don't think a single person in this room even knew they were there.
No.
I mean, they literally came for team building, did their retreat, utilized the hotel and really just enjoyed, mingled, didn't make a big. Now TML, which is the Texas Municipal League, trying to get some of their meetings out here. We don't meet the minimum requirements or what they want available, and it's not the number of rooms. It's just they're looking for specific amenities and.
Like CVS.
Well, and so Ross, I mean, the Board of Regents comes out, regularly, and we miss an opportunity there where we don't help plan them to come in early and leave late because they love coming down.
And I know when we do the regional TML meetings, because we are within a region, we do sell it. The last one we had was in October of 22, and we sold it, like you need to stay over the weekend, this is what's going on. And we did, we had several people, we had 70 people come to the meeting, probably. And some of them is a budgeting thing and they just drive back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
City of Socorro
Yeah,
will never stay at any regional meeting, and I feel so bad for them because they'll leave.
Yeah.
They left Kermit at 10 p.m. to go back to Socorro. But you're right, if we had a website or a page within our own website that said, are you interested in doing a team retreat?
And if we wanted to do that, then I think it would be really helpful to talk to that Odessa, your contacts, and kind of postmortem. Talk about what was their experience, how did they organize it, what would have been better for them. Just get that little focus group action so that when we describe on that website, we start with them as the case study.
You should ask them how they started their search.
Yeah.
What did they look, like
Exactly.
when they went to look, what did they look for first? What was
That's
their
what-
first?
The person who led it had been out here and she knew. And so she fell in love with spice.
Oh.
Because it was just a nice, that's where we had our TML meeting. They liked the facility as far as they had the 2 different buildings besides restaurant, the hotel. It's quiet. It made the team stay focused and not, I need to get to IKEA because IKEA is right down the road from Austin. That's what helped. I don't even think they thought about Soul Austin. It wasn't, I know when I'm talking to other groups, so our regional treasurers organization, for them, it's room blocking, being able to block rooms ahead of time for specific prices and getting discounts. Sometimes they don't want to block in multiple hotels. They want it all in one.
Yeah.
And so Odessa didn't plan long-term out. Like she didn't start this a year ago and then do it. She literally was doing it last minute. So that's working with our hotels and understanding if we were to bring in these types of organizations, could you block a large section of it?
So it sounds like, Chris, there's an action out of this discussion, to look at the folks who came in and would get work with.
Mhm.
And at the meeting, they want to have focus on what are the sorts of things we'd like to have on a web application. So we could walk out, someone says, here's what we want to look like, here's how we want people to do it. In terms of the sorts of things they're interested in, the sorts of things we think about. So we can always come up with, here's what we want to have on an app and a website. We get that funded.
A good questionnaire.
If you were to put a questionnaire as far as like retreats, I mean, I could easily send it to all the cities within our area. If you were to host a team retreat or an executive retreat, you know, and have them fill it out, that would give you. It really has become a big thing with public service. I get emails regularly.
You know, sometimes the lack of things to do is beneficial for a group wanting to come and hold a meeting.
Yeah. Okay.
We're
Yeah,
on the
hotel partner
agenda.
for that.
I think we've covered the first 3 items
I think
of
so,
the
yeah.
agenda, and that leaves this question of a conflict of interest policy. And where that came up was the question had come up around John, honestly. I use the word honestly a lot, and I'm trying to wean myself, but because here's a case, and it has never been a problem, but here's a case where there's a member serving on the committee that's making a recommendation to council who's also someone asking the city for funding that committee is reviewing. Now, I think we've done a good job of John recusing from, he'll answer questions, but at the same, but then we got another application from someone who had multiple applications before the committee. And when I saw that, it was kind of just a gut, like, that feels like we're crossing a line there. But then the question is, well, what's the line? What's the policy? Where should the line be? Because I was comfortable with John, with his single, simple, it's this one project each year that's coming up. But then this other party, well, go be honest and transparent, it was Benjamin with Granada. He's a
Yeah, I have like 5 applicants.
Yeah, he's an ambitious entrepreneurial spirit, and I want to encourage that for sure. Because he's thrown a lot at the wall, and some of it's going to stick, and some of it's going to grow and succeed, and I want that to happen. And he has a lot of ideas. It's valuable on the committee, but the committee's work gets really muddy potentially in terms of those recommendations, and so that's something that I'm glad you guys are both here because this kind of idea is something that I know the council doesn't want to do a bunch of like one-off policies for boards. They want the policies to be consistent across all the boards and commissions that the city has. And even though we're one of the few that do grants, but I'm sure some others might recommend funding questions.
I would recommend that all boards and commissions have a conflict of interest policy because all boards and commissions make recommendations that could potentially utilize city funds.
So that raises a question then, and I don't have the answer for it. I don't know exactly our best procedure for how to arrive at, because the question is, well, in some cases, you fill out, you just disclose your conflicts, but that doesn't prohibit participation as long as those conflicts are made public.
The conflict of interest policy can be designed to address those exact issues. And then the one-off is what you're talking about, the conflict of interest disclosure. Those would not be in the situation with John.
Right.
He couldn't disclose that he's doing this and that because it doesn't work that way. But I know Gio has talked to me about it. You guys have both mentioned it. We do have a conflict of interest and ethics policy that technically applies, that is in the need of being updated. So this is a perfect opportunity. But I do think that there does probably need to be a little bit more stringent criteria. Because ultimately you're all dealing with public.
Right.
Whether you're giving it out as an award or you're making a recommendation to go spend $500,000 on an app. You, to me, would want to go home at night and feel comfortable with no one's going to challenge my decision. No one's going to be whispering in the background with, oh, well, this.
I saw something that I've noticed the last few rounds of voting is that people on this committee tend to want to invest in people whose activities have been going on for a longer amount of time. And when Mr. Garcia inundated the pool with 5 requests, it looked a little scattered, and it made him lose efficacy in a way, because we have all been there where we've tried to like do too many things at once, and so you don't trust it. And so it's not a matter of like, should we pay for John to do something that he's been doing for a long time? It was more a matter of what's going on here. Like, we don't trust this. It doesn't feel right.
It doesn't have a
It's too
track record,
much. There's no track record. And, it's just people in this town are a little bit slower to move. And so I just saw that natural occurrence happening with that episode.
And so here's the question in terms of a policy is what's the best procedure to move forward? And I'm looking to you guys because I count on you for your advice on
Doing, and I can
okay.
and then put something together as the one draft to present to the hot committee.
Okay.
And then as we're working on it, I would like us to take into consideration that they would be applied to all the board positions. I think that's really important. As far as your comment with the applications, there's no reason that we can't go in and change our internal procedures with applications. And maybe we don't have someone that apply for 5, but maybe we do put a limit on the number of applications. But that way the money can be not only dispersed better, but everyone gets a chance.
Yeah.
Because I want to put in like 10. I got to that.
Right. Yeah.
That would not be a complicated.
So it's probably 2 parts then. Getting our conflict of interest policy updated to ensure it covers the appropriate recusals for people who may be involved. So that's one. The second part then is from a hot committee standpoint, a policy statement that says you're allowed to submit 2 applications. That's the maximum per year regardless. And that helps get people's focused on, oh, here's the most important things I'm gonna go off and do.
Yeah,
Well, one thing we might want to do on, maybe what's February, March, then the May. Yeah, maybe the May meeting, would be, that would be a good time, because that's before we announce the opening of the window, because each year, no, not
I
then.
would like to do it in February.
Okay,
I want you guys to have a firm understanding so that we can get council to approve and officially document the changes, especially with the application process.
Yeah.
Because council originally approved that.
oh, okay,
So the little things that we've slightly changed to benefit the city as far as, you know, you need to turn in your reports, you need to show a budget.
Yeah.
Council initially approved that whole process.
okay,
So any changes you make, you want council to secure that and get it in place.
Okay.
Before you even have that conversation opening up the application.
that is very good to know, because yeah, in practice, year after year, like you and I have gone on, so I was thinking, oh, we'll bring it to the committee, but yeah, we'll do that, and I didn't want to overload the February agenda, but we'll do as much as we need to do.
February will be really important,
Yeah.
and I would just make sure everyone has the understanding with February is gonna start the changes to go into May for the application process.
Yeah.
So in May, you're basically gonna be recapping, okay, we're looking at the applications, this is our application schedule, these are our new limitations, this is what we should be really looking for. We are very lenient, which is good and bad. Lately it's been more against us than for us, where we don't, and I know it's nitpicking, but we don't go through the full application, be like, okay, well, they didn't provide this, or they didn't explain this. Because as you're going through these applications, because you have an invested interest, people want to do, you know, like you said, you know, 5 applications and what's all going on. You have people who really want to do something with the city, but we need to make sure that all of the, you know, T's are crossed and I's dotted. Because at the end of the day, we do get audited on this, and we are now required to report all sides of the finances to the state. Before, they just wanted to know what we were spending, just in a good way. Now, they not only want to know what we're spending, but what we're collecting and what we have in reserves. The state is gonna start to control those reserves, right? They're gonna see these big dollars coming out from these cities, they'd be like, well, you know
you
what?
need a new room.
And the state already controls what we can use it for.
Yeah.
So I think February will be a really important meeting for you guys. I will bring you Valentine's cookies.
All right.
It is Valentine's Day.
I think your idea is the best, is for y'all to put together what y'all think the conflict of interest policy should be, and then present it to the board, rather than having the board sit there and
We can't.
haggle on it for an hour.
Especially with the person that was brought up as a reference in regards to it. Like, that's also a conflict of interest.
And then those are things that we'll outline, so that it makes it clear and it makes it fair.
Here's a wrench into the works, if you would. Perhaps you could say the only people that are allowed to serve on this committee are people that have and do events and hotel people.
So the positions were all done by ordinance. And so that would be jumping through even more hoops, and you would delay your whole process.
but we already do kind of have that, John, in that we have the places on the committee are themed, so to speak. We have hotelier positions and arts and history positions, et cetera. So we cover some of that.
I think you have a music one too.
It's not broken down on.
I, by the way, I'm not recommending that, just in case you'd like to know.
So we already did kind of do that, but we made it generalized enough that we could fill the positions.
Yeah,
I think there has been a question around town, like whenever the hot committees come around and all the applications, the little buzz that creates for a little while. Is that like, who are these people on the board? Like, how do they get there? What are their qualifications? Like, who are they to decide what happens and what doesn't? Who gets money and who doesn't?
So your applications are all provided to council and they are available online.
Right.
So if anyone really was like just going after you, just say, you know what, my application is online. All of our applications are online. We're all appointed and we have to meet specific criteria, like I have to be a hotelier, or I have to, you know, actually be an event coordinator, I have to work in the arts field. And
It's kind of like, it feels like like a jury duty, like if you're going to court for the people who are applying for a grant, they're like, who am I gonna get on my jury? That's like the overall feeling. the mood.
We no longer, and I say no longer because I've been here a little while, we don't just pick people anymore. There is a methodology.
I know Judy like recommended me or something out of nowhere.
Yeah, like, okay.
Yeah, Judy kind of makes it a mission to get these committees, if there's a vacancy, she works it. And so that's why she's often the one to make the nomination.
I see.
We like to keep them all filled. So
Yeah.
we do our due diligence to find people who we think would like to serve
Yeah.
and make recommendations to Chris and to council. And hey, these are what's coming in. Because we don't want you to sit there and not be able to make a decision. When you don't have a quorum, we don't move. And if it makes you feel better, in the past, it used to be 3 people making the decision.
Oh no, I feel fine about it.
3 people.
I'm good.
And we were
I'm just
fighting.
expressing a mood that I picked up on. I have a question, like on the changes that you're making for the applications, are you going to require the applicants to complete the application this round?
Yes, so all the changes that we make would be the new application for what's coming up for the next fiscal year. When we open them up in May, that's the funding for actual fiscal year 25.
Right. But they have to fill out the application all the way. They can't just be like, artwork, pass me through. No offense,
Correct,
Carrie.
and so that's where Chris and I Chris just loves me sometimes.
She's got the VIP pass.
I'm if they turn it in and it's not completed, they don't have a chance.
Yeah.
He's let them turn it in, let me go through it, I'll follow up and get everything they
Yeah.
need, and I'm just like, why?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't take that long to fill it out.
And we tried.
For
to
that
give
much
him-
money.
Well, I think we gave him a month, 2 months.
You have the window, I think it was 6 weeks.
And so we
5 to
really
6
do
weeks.
try to give them, we have all the sample forms. You're
Yeah.
right, it's not hard, but for some people, it's not their priority because they think, well, I'm just gonna get in.
Right.
But you have a new pool of people who want to make changes, want to, hey, I wanna try my new, I'm gonna have a bee festival.
Well, and Art Walk has a new person who I
Yes.
just heard from, so
Oh.
I'll be meeting them soon.
Carrie's out.
Carrie has
She's-
finally stepped out. She's been saying she will for a long time. And
I think the 30 was her.
Yeah.
I'm good.
That's so cool.
Okay, well, I think we've done a good job. Thank you guys for workshopping with us. Anything else anybody wants to say on these topics before we move on? Then, would you like to make any comments additionally?
Don't make comments.
Okay. Then our next meeting is scheduled for February 15th, 2024.
15th or 14th?
15.
It's actually.
I'm sorry, my nephew's birthday.
Well, you said 14th earlier.
Yeah.
too.
The 14th is planning and zoning, it's not.
Okay.
That's too many.
And so I'll now pronounce us adjourned. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I didn't mean to interrupt. I just.
No, I appreciate it.